Good evening, citizens. My name is Ban Shattersong, former captain of the Bloody Hands Mercenary Company. Some people, and this is actually a fact, refer to me as the man, the myth, the legend, Ban Shattersong. Part of that is going to be our theme for tonight's episode, specifically Empire/Anvil myths, stories, and legends. Some of them are true, some of them are false, some of them are outright lies, and some of them are funny across all three segments. Helping me in my quest across the field is my dear chum, also from the Blackscar Thornborn, Rhys. Rhys, say hello.
Hello, I'm Rhys, also known as Singwin Longest Path.
Fantastic. And how long have you been LARPing?
Uh, my Empire is actually my first and currently only main LARP, and I've been doing it since 2015, so about 6 to 7 years, including the long dark sort of gap.
Nice. Plenty of frontline hours inside Anvil to, well,
Too,
sniff
too
out
much time
bullshit.
in the too much time in the Anvil shitposting mythos,
Mm.
presumably for my liking. So that'll be perfect for today's sort of topics.
And were you a member? That's what. So, dear listeners, I had a we had a little discussion before jumping on, and there was something I couldn't remember, and I was hoping I would, and I've just remembered it. Do you remember the was it the Empire Larp meme page?
Oh, you mean dank Empire LARP memes?
That was it. Yeah.
Yes, I do remember it.
Right. We'll add that to the agenda as well.
Oh wow. Yikes. That's a throwback.
Yeah,
And it's not even Thursday.
because it came, lasted a little while, then died, and I don't know much more about it. So
Oh, I can regale about a few things about that and why it went down. So
fantastic. And see everyone, that's exactly why I've got Rhys on, and that is going to be the I guess the theme and the flow for this episode. Talk about some myths. Are they true? Are they false? But then also any wider implications they've had as well. And I don't know, is this a mixture between a history documentary but also 24 hours Fox News, I guess, peddling these
oh
rumors that might not even be true in the first place?
well, that's what I'm gonna put any blame solely on Ban in this case.
Yeah, I also blame Ban. He's a separate legal entity.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right then. So the categories we've got for tonight are quickfire, backstory, actual legends and myths, knives, 24-hour news, and then a final little note that I hope you'll all enjoy once we get there. All right, let's start with the quickfire ones. First one on our list is it's in speech quotes here. Find us at insert location at insert time. Rhys, myth, story, or legend?
I mean, it's pretty much all three in one because first of all, it's a myth that you will ever find someone at the location that they say they're going to be at the right time because this is Anvil and basically 300 million things happen. The legend aspect to it is it actually happens for once. And the stories is, oh, I was on that way to the location before I got mugged.
It's an enabler, but it never actually serves its purpose. There are,
Exactly.
I think there's a couple of exceptions where like there's a static tent and they say come and find us on Saturday at this fixed location but won't move that is within arm's reach of this conversation we're having now. I feel like
I think
that's
anything that's yeah, I think anything that like the hub, etc. Anything that's PD orientated is going to be very easy to fix.
yeah,
So anything player related, however,
absolutely. Yeah, come and vote at the hub on Saturday before 4, but 80% of people will get that. There's still 20% of people where 4 o'clock comes shockingly quickly, and they will not be there in time. But yeah, player-led things, especially if it's mobile. If it's come find me, I'll be on a bar crawl this evening. You will never see that
oh
person
no,
again.
no,
That's just not going to happen.
it's an impossibility to try and find someone in the middle of a bar crawl.
Yeah. They say, "Oh, going for drinks. We'll find you later." Like, no, you won't.
Yeah, you won't,
It's
don't
just
I?
active lie. Um, Second, all of these are relatively related. I'll be back, or they'll be back in 10 minutes.
I mean, they will be back in 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes according to their time, which is about 3 hours for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Um, it's generally the case that they'll be back in 10 minutes is often done when they're trying to do something busy like, and they'll just disappear and never turn up again.
Mm.
Which is, yeah, that's 100% just stories about going away for 10 minutes and suddenly someone's being jobbed because they've been away an hour or someone's died or oh,
I
we'll be
need a
back.
physic now. I'll be 10 minutes.
Yeah, I need a physic now. I'm bleeding out. Yeah, I'll go grab you one and then just disappear. It's like, oh, okay.
I do have a legend to share. This actually happened correctly to me at the end of E4.
Mm.
So the big event in Navarre at the moment is that we are going into the Forlorn of Bekelian for the first time, thanks to some magical onion soup. I'm quoting. That's not sarcastic. Anyway, the a bait was essentially gonna cast a ritual on my resource, get it buffed into a military unit, and I was gonna go and help out with this campaign. Now I turn up looking for said person, and they say, oh, one of their friends says, oh, they'll be back in 15 minutes. We'll see you then. And I was like, cool, this is never happening. Now, for argument's sake, because I always like to, prove the point, right? Because often you come back after that said 15 minutes. They're not back, but they've been back and gone somewhere else, so you're slightly closer to finding where they are.
Yep.
I came back, and he just arrived 30 seconds before me.
Oh,
And we sat
wow.
down and we did the ritual. It went off
Oh,
without a
wow.
hitch.
Are you sure you didn't like see any sort of signs or omens on the way there? Like, no swarm of black cats entered and jumped across the field, or
Literally none. It was logistics. It worked well.
oh well,
I,
it's one of the stories of Anvil working for once.
yeah. Now that has only happened once in, well, 7 years of 4 events each. Yeah, that's the odds are low considering the number of interactions and people I've tried to talk to. But it is technically possible. But I think for the most part, when someone says it to you, it's a myth. It's an immediate myth.
Yes, it is. It is a semi near immediate myth, apart from the one occasion where it actually happens.
Yeah,
But myths always got a grain of truth in them at some point,
yeah.
as they always say.
This is the literal grain of sand on this beach of lies and deceit. The next one we've got is kind of the same, but I'll be right back is equal to never seen again. Number of people are, I'll be right back. I'm just doing X, and you see them a day later.
Anyone with a hat is 100% on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Just because of pure logistics and how much they've got. It doesn't even matter how big the hat is. They usually go, I'll be right back, and they'll just disappeared. 100% happens to senators and anyone in the sort of upper echelons.
yeah. There's even some of the more minor ones, like the Navarre have got a dredge master of the Tharunin docks. I can't remember what the actual lake is
The
called.
fever water.
Thank you, Fever Water Docks, and they get something like 4 ingots of iron every event, green iron. Like
That was
that's it.
the case, but yeah.
It was, but like, it was pointless and well, semi-pointless because it's barely any money. Cool bit of plot if something happens, which it did. But anyway, even someone like that, when it's comparatively very little, they still get pulled into things, and they say I'll be right back. I'm dealing with something else, and they will never come back.
Yeah, you just play sad sonettes as they disappear into the distance and
Mm.
never to return again
I
until
don't know
they're
what you could.
hungry.
I don't know what you could do, like to actually combat this. Like a notice board with like,
Collar and a leash.
yeah, a collar, a leash, and like a radar. Just just microchip. Treat them like
Like
your household cat. Just microchip
any
all of it.
anyone with a hat must get like put on this, and they can't go more than 15 feet away. That's all they're allowed to do. It's the only no. You're never going to combat the "I'll be right back" problem because unfortunately the Anvil field is far too busy in
Yeah.
terms of things that you could get wrapped up in. So it is pretty much a myth, a story, legend that's all whacked into one.
I don't know. You could put them all in a cage and bring the things to them. You'd have to create a
That is
separate.
not that's not how this game works.
Just put every single hat in a cage, and then civil service
Thunderdome
members bring them food and the required resources.
it. That's not how it works. Also, I'd rather have them Thunderdomed. So,
Ah, true.
well, what have we got next then? I think
Uh,
it's quite similar, the same thing.
I'm just popping to Conclave. It's fun. Um,
Okay.
as a mage, tell me, Rhys, is that remotely accurate?
I mean, it depends on how dry the night is, to be honest. There are times where a conclave can actually be semi-fun or very much like dramatized reading. But yeah, there are times where it is just literally dry mage politics, and it's like, oh, it is fun as I'm slowly nursing my second bottle of mead. Uh,
Is that second inside the tent?
That's second inside the tent. Yes, that's
Oh,
correct.
God
I've
dear.
already had two beforehand to prep me to get my courage, my virtuous courage enough up to get inside that tent.
Just imagine all these mages just staggering through the portal, just leaning against the side of the tent, just hoping it's going to be
That's why
over
you
soon.
operate. That's why you operate the portal like early doors on a Friday, because you don't have to do it for the rest of the event. Then you just mutter
Interesting.
some words and then fall through the portal.
Let me the fuck in. Slam.
I mean, this is appropriate role playing. It's an incantation. Let me the fuck in portal. Operate portal. Technically works.
Hippity hoppity, let me the fuck into your property.
Hibbity hoppity, if you don't open, we're gonna burn you down as you operate portal. Yeah,
Eopity. Yeah, nailed it.
mage politics. You just yeah. I'm popping into conclave. It's fun. 100% actual factual, depending on what you role play as.
All right. Next up, going to Moorish. I'll be 10 minutes.
40 in the queue.
Yeah, at least. Like,
Yeah,
just gonna grab breakfast at Moorish. We'll be back in 20 minutes. Like, especially pre-battle.
I
Like,
think people. I
oh,
think people. There is a special type of people who goes to Empire, who are doing their own battles. So we'll say you're PCing the battle, and assume that they can go get a Moorish about any time past 9 o'clock, and assume they're not going to be there for 40 minutes.
yeah.
Like, this is a very special type of people who not to realize that everyone else has got the same universal idea.
Breakfast at 9. I'll be, back at 10 and ready by 10. Like, no, no, you won't.
No, you
It's just
won't.
a lie. Abject lie. False. Myth. Um, next up, I'm not angry at all. Next up, sitting in a corner in the forge will get you plot.
Ooh, it's half and half really. Depends on how packed the forge is. But at the same time, the majority of the forge is, from my own recollection, is usually filled with people playing music and then just enjoying and having a good time. So,
Yeah, a lot of bands and like larger groups in there as well.
mm,
I
so
find it's.
you
Oh,
could
sorry,
get
go
some
for it.
plot, but I would probably lean against it to not, because not the majority of people are probably out at the icy bars, etc.
Yeah, I think getting actual serious plots, PD or player driven, almost 0% in there. I feel like getting approached by people who take on a bar crawl, likely.
Yeah, I mean,
Whether you count that as plot is another issue entirely.
this is the semantics of the situation is what you define as plot, and I mean we're not going to be sitting here doing that because everyone's plot is different.
Yeah, I'm kind of imagining it like Aragorn's Strider kind of archetype
Oh, you
in
mean
the Fellowship of the Ring.
going off on the grand adventure, getting all the big plot, movers
Yeah,
and shakers sort of thing?
it's not going to happen in the Forge.
Eh, one in a
But you
million.
might get
But
inducted
yeah,
into a Marcher football team.
oh yeah, that's a good plot.
Yeah, that is, yeah. To be fair, that's the important plot.
It's the important. That's the plot that matters.
Yeah,
All right,
that's the plot that will shape the Empire as we see fit.
exactly. The football team.
Yeah, we need to form one actually. It needs to be a league.
Oh no, we're not turning this into the fucking Empire equivalent of Blood Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
Anvil Bowl would be good. It
It
would
would
be
be
good.
good.
Yeah. And like for off topic here, I'm going to take the first hit on going off topic, but like sport at Anvil, I feel like would be a very interesting thing because you've got loads of fencing, archery, like combat based sports, right? But
I
the
think there's
ball,
I think there's a lack of actual genuine sport well, I said genuine, I mean non-combat related sport, as you said, like with football. Like there is some violent elements to football because it's equivalent to like 1900s football, if I remember correctly, which is
Yep.
the everyone basically gangs in and tries to get the football, and therefore you have the whole situation of kicking the living shit out of people. Um, but yeah, definitely a lack of it. I could see a few types of games being made up, but then it's like a weird tangent. It goes from combat-related stuff all the way down to card and board games. At that point, then there's no real happy medium of actual like non-aggressive sports. So
Yeah, because I haven't
maybe we should
seen
start golf.
that would you watch that just this lap safe a
Let's see.
small rock just lands in the middle of this road, and then all these players run over and start excitedly talking about it with their notepads out, making just pointing at the sky and drawing arcs and go, "Oh, very good." And then someone walks over with a a very peculiarly shaped hammer,
Yep.
struts in, and we treat them like some kind of golf star. I feel like that could
Instead of
kick off.
crying, instead of crying for, you're crying vigilance. There's a
Vigilance, just this
there's
large
a,
rock lands.
a rock lands on you. Yeah.
Oh, what's it?
Oh,
Alice in Wonderland, the little sort of N-shaped,
okay.
yeah, metal croquet. That's it.
Yeah.
I feel like that
Yeah.
could that could be interesting. Like, imagine you're walking by the Navari entrance and there's just people playing croquet.
I
Five
think
rings for a
Dawn would
quick
play.
game.
I think Dawnish would be a croquet thing.
Mm,
Fair. Very flowery on the entranceways. Could do it overnight at one time in the stealth dead of night and turn the glory square into a croquet pitch. That would be pretty hilarious.
it'd be a really interesting garden sport. I feel like garden sport bowls as well would be interesting.
Balls would be quite well, or petanque as well.
Mm,
But you naturally would need the sort of setting for it as well. And you're not going to really turn Anvil Field into a Bulls Field in like
that's
less
where
than a few days.
that's where you're wrong, kiddo. But yeah, I've seen. I mean, I've personally even brought card and board games and liar's dice, that kind of thing. It's quite rare you get to play them. It's because you need tables, lots of people. Well, I say relatively lots of people. Let's say four plus, in the same space with a flat surface to roll. You need good light, that kind of thing. It's relatively hard, but I feel like garden sports could actually take off.
Yeah, I could see that, especially during the day. That this it does relate to our good old few first elements of this thing about how there's so much plot. If you take up an hour of your day playing icy ball, so you're not doing something other than that with your limited time. So it's all FOMO stuff at that point.
Yeah, true. Depends if you start pitching it a bit like Gin Club and say, "Ah, have you been invited to the croquet team?
The croquet club.
Should we should put those like the trilby hats on and start just hanging out at the entrance to various tents, going, ah, would you like to play croquet, sir?"
Yes.
That
It
would
sounds like an elaborate scam or an actual good time. Either way, it's going to be fun.
yeah. Speaking of things always being fun, the final part on the what was meant to be quick fire, but has currently lasted a mighty 18 minutes. Um, it's only like 15% when referring to people's homebrew. Um, I feel
Well,
like most people are relatively accurate with their alcohol. However, the number of times I've mysteriously got smashed on homebrew is quite
as
high.
yeah, as a home brewer myself, I know I definitely do alcometer checks, but there are certainly individual like cases where you pick up something that's labeled as cider and is more akin to something that's sweet wine instead.
Mm.
Put it that way.
Yeah, the
I think
meads as well, they can vary a lot.
I think the most lethal part is that people when they, we I think the most lethal ones are the meads because they're the in between ones. So if you go for cider, if you make a cider that's stupidly strong, you've gone wrong. Like, or unless that's your intent to make a really strong cider. Same with spirits, you're brewing spirits to be quite strong. I don't think mead has that sort of aspect. You brew mead to try and taste it nice, and then it ends up being ridiculously strong
Mm.
as just part of the fermentation process. So That's all I have to add, really. It's a myth, a story, and a legend all at once because you get smashed, you end up having the hangover, and then you try and find the alcohol again, and it's never sold again, so it becomes a myth.
Oh, you find something you actually like for once. You're like, oh well, I'm never finding that trader ever again. They're gone.
It reminds me of Dragon's Piss, which was a really really crap white wine that I absolutely adored. It was like 10 crowns, 10 crowns, 10 rings a bottle because it was basically vinegar at that point. But I was so smashed, I just went through like 2, 3 bottles of it.
Just suckling away on a nice liter of piss.
Exactly.
TF2 Scout vibes.
Oh no.
Alrighty, that ends the quickfire round. Next up is around backstory, and I think one of the only few times people will ever care about, not to be rude, but I'm going to be rude. The only time people will care about your backstory is perhaps at your funeral. And our first point is how you get to your funeral. And our first point is competent battlefield commanders.
Complete myth.
Yeah, that's a myth.
I
Every
think.
single skirmish is a clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's there are right there are people who are competent at the role of being a battlefield commander, right? And but let's not knock that. It's like you can be a competent battlefield commander, but the battlefield is probably just going to go haywire. So even if you got all your ducks in a row before you go on, the ducks are going to run free.
Yeah,
And I don't think you have the ability to micromanage. Unfortunately, LARPers do not have the discipline to hold a line for longer than 5 minutes, as long as they know that there's like 3 other rows of people behind them that they can either not run past because they're being a line, or can run past so they can pass the buck on who's getting hit. So
yeah,
my 2 cents.
and also what's I think definitely as the events have got bigger, what's really shocked, surprised, appalled, whatever word you want to use, me, is the lack of organization before we even go in anymore. Because before you'd have um, loosely, let's say it's a 60-person skirmish, you'd have probably about 100 people turn up, but the first 60 get through. But now, because there's different points of contact for each skirmish, what's happening is the brokerage of, let's say, 20 Navarre, 20 Dawn, and 20 High Guard, for example, that stuff is getting crazy because each group is bringing double. They either bring 5% or double of what they need. There's almost no in between. And then when everyone's bringing double what they need, you end up with double for the total skirmish. So instead of the 100 at most, you have 120 at least. And then on top of that, when you try and organize those 20 to go through in different columns based on nation, what happens is that nation with their 40 just piles through. The next nation
Yeah.
that goes through gets their original 20, and that's it. And then the third nation just gets nothing. And yeah, it's been a phenomena of the last, I'd say, 6 events. Started about 6 events ago, mildly, but then it has
Mm.
accelerated and accelerated in its severity. But yeah, those kind of skirmishes are always clusterfucks because you go on, the commander immediately, if sorry, if the commander even gets on the skirmish, they immediately lose control of said skirmish because the forces they thought they had at their disposal are now gone. And instead you've got, instead of 40 fighters and 20 healers slash scouts or otherwise, you've got 55 heavy knights, a single physic, and 4 vates. Bearing in mind the mission is to cast a ritual on a Regio while scouting the area, it can be quite difficult. But yeah, competent skirmishers perhaps is another myth. But yeah, getting onto them could be a myth as well. It's very hard nowadays to actually get onto those fights.
I don't know. I think we hit a nerve in Ban's immortal soul at this point.
Yeah, that's a rant. A rant I'm gonna happily have my own episode for.
No, it's fine. I mean, I can completely understand it. And the sort of touching back on the battlefield commander point is unfortunately with the delegation of certain specific skirmishes out to a loosely affiliated title, it might, whilst logistically it could make some sense, like if the holder of some sort of hat is dealing with a problem in that local area, then it gets allocated the hat to sort out the sort of skirmish as a whole. But in general terms, this might be someone who has literally zero interest in dealing with the military side of the game or like the skirmish side of the game. They have a hat because it's something that did something for them, and therefore have no experience in sort of going through that process of organizing skirmishes, and it can be quite a bit daunting.
Oh, it's
So
ridiculously difficult. Yeah, I
yeah,
actually, despite my salt, I actually believe PD have done the right thing, given a clear point of contact for each skirmish, and also giving it a lot of flavor text, because each skirmish has the person talking to you is like, right, I personally own this, and it's been looted by a load of Druge. I need you and 39 of your mates to go and beat the living shit out of the Druge. It's, for reason X, Y, and Z. It's pretty cool. But I feel what's really lost itself as the actual teams going through, because it's getting so big now it's hard to organize. I feel like almost do you remember like your older like football or rugby coach, they bring those cones and they would just
yeah.
cone out an area. I feel like coning out an area of like, right, you stand here, you stand over there, make a line between your people. Right, that's the first wave. And just doing something super organized like that to actually address it. But of course, doing that is a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, and like you said, people might not even want to do it in the first place.
Yeah, it's a shame, but hey ho. But also, do you know what also helps competent battlefield commanders?
Go on.
Uh, Having people who are interested in their backstory.
Oh yeah, back to the point. Yeah. Um, Rhys, have you ever asked somebody for their backstory?
Once or twice.
How many
Not in
people
a
have you talked to in total?
in total at Anvil about 5.
That's a lie. That is a
Yes.
myth.
No, right. So this is probably an important sort of aspect. Is a difference between asking for someone's backstory or asking for a point in someone's backstory. I don't think I've ever really asked. Can you just tell me about yourself? Like as I flutter my eyelashes at someone, clearly trying to get a drink out of them or whatever. I don't think I've ever done that. I may have asked like, why are you so hell bent on keeping this territory, or why are you so hell bent on like avenging your sibling's death or something like that, or can you tell me how they died? But never like a full backstory. So no, I would say I've never actually asked the statement, can you tell me more about your backstory? Because it's always something specific.
Nice. Hmm. I won't stray into the latter points here, but I've literally heard the sentence uttered once.
Mm.
Um, it was when I was walking past a couple of citizens. I don't think they knew each other. I think one was very keen on talking to the other, but the other one was not very keen on talking to the
Ah,
former. And the former said, "Oh, can I tell you a little bit more about my family and where we've come from?" And the other citizen, of course, goes, "Oh no, sorry, I'm not interested." And the look of shock on this citizen's face was hilarious.
oh,
Like
broke
you don't want to listen to my carefully crafted PD approved backstory.
Oh
Like
well, that's a thing in its entirety. I mean, will PD actually ever read your backstory?
no.
No. There
Okay.
you go. That's a myth.
Yeah,
The
it's not even
next
a
one
myth.
on
It's just
list done.
no. Not even. I think they technically I think they skim read them. I think in reality there's that amount of play. I suppose. Well, what 16,000 player
I,
characters have been created, but not necessarily played. Um,
hmm,
I feel like we should test this. Make it
I
alt
don't.
and just write something horrendous in the in the account and just see if the account just gets banned or not.
I think PD may, as you said, they may skim read, but at the same time, if the plot team are busy doing plot stuff, they can't expect them to vet every single one. So I think they look skim read someone if they see a problematic element that's completely not in keeping with the law. They might, reject it or whatever they do and sanction the character.
Mhm.
Or they might then go, you can't have this, or throw an edit back or whatever. But I don't think that I haven't heard anyone at all ever had their backstory rejected,
Mhm.
mostly because people understand and, don't fuck with the rules effectively.
Yeah, and those who don't understand that often, well,
Don't come back.
don't come back. Yeah, it's very basic. Obey the wiki, pay for your ticket, don't be a dick.
Hmm.
Sorted. That's an ancient myth I'm alluding to there, but we'll leave that for another time, not on record. Next up is well, it's related to parents. What I was going to mention earlier around the backstory I've encountered most is people going, "Oh, my parents are dead," and the point here
Mm.
is my parents are dead slash a happy backstory. Happy backstories are a myth, and dead parents are the stuff of legends. Like, can you imagine the the economic damage to the empire with all of these, we're all heroes, right? We're all people of import. We're all like oligarchs. We own mines, we own farms, that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
All of our parents are dead. What the fuck is happening to the
I'm...
generation above us, especially the wealthy? They've been purged. What on earth
Well,
has happened?
I mean, as a player who currently has a character of a semi-tragic backstory, yeah, I can kind of understand where that comes from about my parents are dead. I know one. I've canon. One of my parents is dead. The other one's missing. So yeah, I know it's kind of like where have they all gone? I can completely understand that the happy backstory is pretty much like a mythical thing at this point
Yeah,
because I don't think happiness breeds interesting plot. It's the whole nuance if you leave the happy ending to the end of the life of someone and then you move on because conflict is good for creating good plot because inherently if someone's got like these issues or they've got a character is dead, for instance, like your parents are dead. Why are they dead? Well, the Jotun came and killed them, like, and that's the reason why I'm in Anvil. I've just inherited like a semi-burnt down farm. You've got like the plot hook motivations for your character's reasoning, and it's far better than, oh yeah, my name's Dave. I've just come from Mitwold because my parents have sent me to Anvil to go sightseeing.
how dare you? That's basically my backstory.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know. I know your current iterations on yes.
Yeah, you make a really good point. The happy backstory doesn't generate much plot or intrigue or let's call it reason, but it does
Mm.
generate a lot of really interesting conversations. Because a number of times I've said to people, "Oh, my parents live in Miaran in Holt in the southeast. They're happily married. They're safe and sound, and yeah, I visit them when I go home." And the
And
smiles on people's faces.
people just look at you like, oh, this is something we need to protect. It's so rare.
Yeah, but what's also interesting is the amount of people that assume that Lindir is simple in some way because of that. Because my parents are alive and they're happy and they're fine, and I go and visit them like a good son should do. The number
Here's
of people who treat me like I'm 5 years old is incredible.
I mean, we treat you like you're 5 years old already, Chris. Don't worry.
Yeah, but that's OC. We're talking about IC here, man. Look,
No,
the fact you had
I
to spoon feed me on the way home from E4 doesn't bear any relevance to this conversation. I don't
oh
need
no.
the KFC
How,
discussion to work out for me.
but yeah, as you said, there's a pro and con for it. Like individual might be that a happy backstory with some character might be quite interesting to see other players like interact with, and then you have the situation where if you're a happy backstory, you may not have the impetus or drive or like motivation to be so deep or passionate about your roleplay. That's a complete like opinion, by the way, because there are probably are players who roleplay extremely good and passionate, like happy characters.
You
But
realise that this is entirely Fox News
yeah,
peddling opinion over fact kind of bullshit hour.
I think personally, for a character for me, I can draw upon sadder or like more uh, visceral emotions than I can happy emotions and play on them as a motivation. So
Mm.
that's why my parents have tragic backstories, or there's a tragic reason behind it, because there's some like visceral element you can pull out into your role play to make it more authentic.
Mm.
I can't really do that with happiness because if I'm happy, you've seen me when I'm happy. I'm just a fucking shitlord. So
You start capering around on all fours, just giggling away.
mm, dancing to heavy gopnik music.
Oh
So
man,
yeah.
man, that video, chef's kiss.
Well, so why is throne useful?
It's not.
Well, they can be in certain situations.
No, I'm going to take a hard, highly opinionated stand here as a marksman, right? Throne is, as we discussed, sort of off camera a little bit earlier before jumping on. It's archery is already firing tenors at each other
Yeah,
with maybe I'd say like a 95% odds of getting that arrow back. It's actually pretty high. People will poo-poo that, but I have had a really good record with my arrow if it's not broken.
yeah.
The odds of getting your arrow back is probably around 65 to 70, because they get broken. But thrown weapons, the cordless little daggers, the rocks, the bricks, all those lovely, lovely items where you just dream of having a sack of them. In reality, they're not coming back, especially if you use them on the battlefield.
I think if you throw a dagger on the main field, I think you've got maybe a 40% or less chance of getting it back. It'll be recovered, but you won't get to it, or it'll be in lost property. And it's like they daggers seem to be very very ununique, if that makes sense. So they're
Yeah,
very like they tend to be the same sort of design and style. I think if you throw a dagger inside the copse or inside the actual woods at the current site that we're at, yeah, you just make sure you attach a £5 note to your dagger as you're throwing it, so you can actually visualize the money you are wasting. Uh, because that's how I feel about it. I don't think thrown is a bad choice. By the way, I think there is certainly, like any skill in this game, there is a use to it. Thrown could be useful if there was still the whole damage aspect of if you could throw several daggers at the same time and cause 3 wounds, for instance. If you threw 3 daggers and 3 daggers hit, like that would be like solid, right? That's distance
you can
wise.
make traps like tripwire when this bucket opens up and drops knives on you, and you just drop to
Yeah,
the floor.
yeah, exactly. However, because of the rule hit of you can take one global hit from one target per time, if it's one individual throwing 3 daggers, you're only going to take technically one hit according to the rules because
Yep.
it's from one person. If there's 3 people throwing 3 daggers at you, different story. But individually, it's not exactly you know brass tacks.
Yeah. Speaking of brass tacks, actually, I do have a story, a myth, some might say. Well, no, a legend,
Mm.
perhaps, around Throne from E4 again. This is second hand, but essentially, a certain citizen told me that they saw a group of freeborn using thrown weapons behind shields,
Nice.
and
I
they,
could. Oh,
what they did was they picked someone in the line opposite them, and the three of them just pelted them with knives until they fell to the floor. Rinse and repeat, and it was surprisingly effective.
I mean, that sort of goes back to what I just advised then. If it's 3 people throwing 3 individual knives, it can cause 3 damage. So go for it. It's rules accurate. So why not?
Mm. It's just an interesting fighting style, and the same with it's just something you don't see very often. So same with javelins. Javelins you can use them. It's part of the thrown skill. I don't think I've ever
I have.
seen a player, a player use a javelin. I've seen monsters use them, but not a player.
I've seen one player in my lifetime use a javelin, and I've seen multiple monsters use it.
Mm.
However, there is no actual benefit to using a javelin. That's the problem. It's like if there was a differentiation between a javelin, say if it hit a spear, it would cause a shatter on the spear, it would be 100% useful. Unfortunately, it's not. It just does 1 damage.
You
So
just give them
imagine for it,
impale.
you might as well just, yeah, you can give it impale. Yeah, exactly. Be great. But, unfortunately, you might as well just three throwing daggers at people.
Yeah, because one big, like, wow, that's an elaborate way of getting one health point off me.
Haha.
Because it would be cool to see like a Roman, it's like a Roman legionary
Heal 'em.
fight style.
Yeah.
Just yeet a couple impales at them and then charge them point blank. Fun
Mm.
stuff. And then the final thing in the more detailed backstory, the backstory of a certain Facebook page. This being Dank Empire memes. So as far as I'm aware, it was of course an Empire meme page back in the old age of dank memes being popular on Facebook. and I feel cringe just saying it out loud. But yeah, what happened to it? Like, what? How did it rise? How did it die?
Oh, I think Dankenbai memes was a product of just a different time in terms of LARPing, right? So you had the whole situation of Dankenbai memes, I believe, came about from just Empire shitposting. People would make you'd add enough people on Facebook friends from just general LARP that you would end up being a situation where you could post a haha funny joke at something that happened at LARP, and enough people would hit the like button, and you'd get the endorphin rush to your brain. Um, that sort of transpired and fell into the Dank Empire memes thing because people just wanted to make a group that then would post silly jokes about things that happened at Empire. You know, whatever, like, haha, representation of Navy, like freeborn Navy and its ship underwater, stuff
Yeah,
like that. Um, Obviously, we had 2019, it was going strong because, E4 just happened in 2019, it kept going, then it ticked over to 2020. We started along dark. It's the same meme getting repeated over and over again because the events didn't happen. So they put a can on it. Then, they cancelled it, or rather, they said we're putting this page on hiatus because there's nothing new to add. It's the same jokes over and over again. Also, there was some elements of the jokes becoming a little bit more vicious. Is probably the best way to describe it in terms of how spicy they were being.
yep,
And we're not talking like good spice, we're talking pretty much very, very bad spice. So put a pause on the page during the pandemic. It came back for like a week then, if I recall correctly, at the end of 20, because they were like, you can have a free week at posting, and then it went down again, and then it came back again for another week, which was the final hurrah week, which was the decision that Empire Memes was basically too toxic to continue in the current format. And there's a lot of stuff on there that could be misconstrued. There's a lot of stuff that may have had an intentional sort of reason behind it that may have been a little bit too bad. And also, with a new player base coming in that were interested, Dank Empire Memes was obviously going to set a wrong impression to them, which is kind of why I feel it got nerfed or nuked is probably the better way to describe it.
uh, just like the collies on Bravo. Sorry, that's I've been playing a lot of Foxhole today. That's exactly what happened. We got fucking nuked.
Yeah.
Yeah, rip. F and chat, F and chat for the collies. Oh, that's a shame, man. Like, I remember the early day stuff. It was really like when I just walk, like any meme page, you just walk in, like Tell Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff. Back in the
Yeah.
day, you're like, oh wow, this is great. Bowmaster, wow, that's really funny. And then a year later, when it's like you said, same joke, like, well, this is less good now. Also,
Yeah,
just meme
exactly.
pages on Facebook in general, like it's a dying platform.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it gets old. It's the same as you said. You quite summarized it quite well. It's the Bowmaster meme. It's funny once or twice. Three times, okay, maybe you might get a chuckle from me when I'm slightly tipsy. But when you've seen the sixth meme about, like, say,
They're taking the hobbits to
oh
Isengard.
yeah, something like that, but in an Empire format, you just go, no, I'm done. And then obviously you get the edgy stuff on there, which doesn't really help. So
Yeah, when you're done with the main line, go for the edge.
yep.
Man, so there we have it. The, the very logical rise and fall of Dank Empire memes. There we go. Internet historian right there. All right. Next up, we've got actual legends, and the first is the Hedge Knight. So,
Okay.
right, I think I know the Hedge Knight, so I'm going to go for it,
Mhm.
and I want you to correct me at the end and score me out of 10. So, the Hedge Knight, so the tale goes, is a legendary player of Empire LARP. Said knight decided to buy, well, they wanted to attend Anvil, of course, and they were going to pick up the idea was to buy and pick up all of the stuff that they wanted to use at the event. So your tent, armor, clothes, that kind of thing. So anyway, the hedge knight was going to buy all of their stuff on site. What they do instead, however, is they go down to the lovely traders that lie in Anvil streets and spy this beautiful set of armor. Very shiny, intricately detailed, and of course, very expensive. Now, at this point, the dear Hedge Knight has not purchased a tent, warm clothing, some even say shoes. But so smitten and struck by the beauty of the suit of armor, the Hedge Knight decided to spaff all of their hard-earned currency on said suit of armor. Walking around like a glorious dustbin, they looked regal, sublime, perfect. That was until, of course, night falls, the ale is drunk, the fires go out, and it's time to go to bed. When you haven't got a bed, what are you to do? Well, when you spent all your cash on your suit of armor, you might as well expand the remit of said suit of armor. Perhaps now it's a tent and a set of thermal clothing. And what's this? A hedge. I guess I'll just sleep here. And so the Hedge Knight slept in the hedge, much to their own detriment. And I think they were fundamentally okay, but I think they got fished out in the morning, or they staggered out in the morning, and they were just covered in, the generic cartoon stuff like twigs, branches, some leaves, that kind of stuff, because they'd literally spent a night in a ditch. So drunk that they didn't really mind. They slept it off, and that was that. That is the tale as I understand it. Am I wrong?
You have proportions of the tale right.
Oh,
Uh, so, general gist. Now, I will be the fact to your fiction. Not that's a bit rough, actually. To be honest, I do
ouch. I'm
apologize.
physically hurt by that.
So,
Immediately pulling the
the
plug.
individual in question was an individual who came to Empire after purchasing a nice big shiny kit of lovely plate. This individual had decided, however, that they didn't need a tent, they didn't need clothing, they didn't need bedding, etc., because they were actually going to go as a hedge knight. So their intention was to actually turn up and sleep in a hedge,
Oh, no
like a
way.
typical hedge knight.
Oh, fuck's
They
sake.
failed, however, to realize that the majority of LARP-based plate armor is, steel or corrosive, basically a material that will rust. So they got this lovely, lovely piece of I think the total tally was, estimates vary, but I think it was well to $1,000 or more that the total armor set cost.
Oh, Christ.
And they, did the typical thing. They said, I'm going to be a hedge knight. I've got my cloak. I've got the ground. I'll do it. They went and found a hedge, got up the next morning, and their entire beautiful armor was pitted because of the moisture in the air and from how they slept. So yeah,
Oh, that's rough.
that's it. And they didn't realize that. That's the crux of it as well. They didn't realize that their armor was going to get pitted or rust damage from being exposed and due to the exposure in the air, which is part of lack of wisdom and just general. Well,
It's almost
there's that
like people don't sleep in hedges because it's not a good idea for a variety of reasons.
must have not
Rusting.
been very nice, you know.
Yeah, like it's kind of hardcore. There's a small bit of appeal in that idea of being hardcore enough to have a hedge build, right? But LARP is like a holiday. It's fun. That just sounds like a terrible way to end your night.
Yeah, it's not great. Like I wouldn't want to do that. It's bad. It's bad enough sometimes in April with how cold it gets, right? I mean, this
Hmm.
year in that LARP, for instance, on April, I went to bed on the Friday night like 10 o'clock because I was not feeling well. Like, and if I wasn't feeling well and I had to sleep under a hedge, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now.
Yeah, it's like I'm checking out.
Yeah,
Off to
that
Milton
would be it.
Keynes A&E. Here I go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, rough. Does Hedge Knight still attend without naming names, or?
I don't believe so. It's just a name or one of the well-known stories of Empire.
Man,
Unfortunately, I don't know if this player continues to come. If they do continue to come, I presume they've presumably or hopefully invested in a tent.
yeah, pitting themselves against the elements, perhaps not the best idea.
Hmm.
All right, that's a shit time to be a piece of plate armor. The next
Hmm.
one on my list is also shit related. Shit in the fire pit. I don't know anything
Oh,
about this. Tell me more.
oh, This is a traditional Navari tale. Um, I'm not joking. It really is. So Navarre has a very distinctive fire pit. For those who don't know, if you're any of the post-national sort of listeners from outside of Navarre, we do have a very nice fire pit. It was crowdfunded by the Navarre nation as a whole. It's this lovely sort of interworked, locked orb or globe-shaped fire pit. Uh, Once it was purchased, however, and once it came to the Anvil field, something darish happened one night. Some dastardly sort of thing happened, and it actually happened the one prior to it as well, and then the second actual occurrence happened in this new fire pit. So one morning, we're all sitting around, or rather, getting up in the morning, and a horrendous cry comes out of someone has shat in the fire pit. You think, oh well, it's clearly not the case. It's just like something's happened. Someone's making up some joke. Maybe it's someone shat in someone else's fire pit. No, no, this is in the national fire pit. So you go over to the national fire pit, sitting in this lovely circle in the woods, and there is a nice big number two inside the fire pit.
Oh man,
And
like this is
yeah,
early morning. Like,
no, this is like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, where everyone's getting up again after the night
oh
before.
Christ.
So this occurrence has probably happened at some time between like 2 and 6, 2 and 7 in the morning. So someone's tactically gone there at this hour. And the second time, when it's the globe fire pit, is even more concerning because the fire pit that night before was on till like 3. It's like a semi-contained circle of metal, and someone managed to shit inside it, which means that someone had to put their bare ass against metal that has been basically cooked for like several hours that night, and somehow angled themselves in without touching any of this to ensure that they didn't get scorched, and then proceeded to go, which obviously then elicits another heroic cry of someone has shat in the fire pit. And it's now just become a sort of, like you curse something, like shit the bed. It's effectively just shit the pit now in some Navari circles because, why
That's
not?
nuts.
It's a heroic time at Empire. I believe it's also happened in other national pits as well.
Do you
I
reckon it
can't
must be the
confirm.
same person?
Yeah, it must be the Phantom Shitter Anvil rises again. Like,
Yeah.
I can't confirm if it's happened in the Orc one or not, but I'm about 90% certain it may have been done at one point in the Moot fire pit because of how big it is. But then again, it's quite exposed, and in the Var Woods, you got a bit of coverage. So
Yeah. Like that's thing. Like this, inside our songs and stories circle, there's space for like 100 people there. It is an exposed area, let alone
mm,
the audacity you need to do it in the first place. Let alone the incredible fine motor skills you need to not get scorched yet still angle it. Because this pit, imagine it like a sphere, right? It is basically a sphere, but on the
mm,
side and there's cutouts around a tree. So as the light comes out and there's a silhouetted Navari-esque tree, it's there's not that much space around it.
no,
You've got to like, I'm imagining like I'm what 5'10", 5'11". I'm imagining myself bent forwards, like to comfortably get a turd in there. I'd like squat down a couple of inches and like arch my back so it's convex, not concave. And no, sorry, yeah, yeah, concave. Sorry, concave instead of convex. And I need a lot of force behind it, like a lot. Like I've just had a cup of coffee and a bowl of cereal, or a pretty spicy curry kind of force. That's incredible. I'm sat here in awe. That is, I'm going to be thinking about the logistics of that every single time I walk past that fire pit.
yeah, shit the pit. One of the greatest stories that's ever happened. The one that I can personally validate at least one of the attempts as well, which is semi sick, but also just because I actually heard the person scream it and then actually went to examine it, and it was funny. I found it humorous. A lot of people didn't.
Was this like late at night or?
Oh no, this was in the morning when it was basically one of the individuals who no longer attends Empire. In one of the big people in the Navarre fire camp was the one to discover it and basically balked out. I think it was about 8:30 in the morning,
Oh,
when
no.
everyone's still semi asleep. Just screamed out someone was shit in the fire pit, and that
Oh
was
man.
yeah, that's how I found about it. And I went and had a look, and I went, yep, someone has, and then went back to my business.
And when you say your business, you're not telling me,
Uh,
but
no,
you're the
I'm
phantom
not.
shitter.
I am not the phantom shitter. I went back and made coffee because I needed
Alright.
to actually help my bowel movements out.
And again, not inside the
Not
pit.
inside the pit. No. This is back before I actually ate healthy, so coffee was my main way. But that's TMI, and let's move on.
Yeah, the coffee is universal. Don't worry, I'm with you on that. Another shit-related story: the tactical shit.
No,
So
everyone knows about tactical shits.
if a bear shits in the wood, does anybody notice? Uh, who knows? But if a certain player shits in the wood in the middle of a battle, does anybody notice out of the thousand or so people on said battlefield? I
I
believe the
don't think.
answer is no.
I don't think so. No. I've heard like several people. Oh, I've heard from several different people about seeing some people like piss on the battlefield. Like it's imaginable, especially with guys and how well,
Oh yeah,
individuals.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken a tactical whiz. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like you said, logistics are that easy. It's quick. You can
Number
force it
two.
out and you're done. But like the number two, like it's a clean-up operation with that. It's a bit longer. Like personally, just to overshare, I have a book of Sudokus on my toilet
Mm,
cistern, and I sit there and I'll do one, and it'll take me anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes, right? And
mm.
that's calm and relaxed time. A battlefield is not calm or relaxed. There are people everywhere. I'm in layers of chainmail. I'm sweaty. It is hot, and I'm literally in danger. Like I can't imagine a worse scenario to try and force out a turd. So I don't know how they do it. I don't know how on earth you could like,
Supreme barrel movements. That's how.
yeah, just if you gotta go, you've really gotta go.
I mean, yeah, it's the one thing. I mean, I've heard secondhand that it's happened. I would not assume otherwise. As in, I would assume that some people probably have done it because human beings, after all.
Yeah, we know someone has done it, but when they came back and said, "Oh, I just went for a shit," I just thought they were joking. I just thought they were joking.
The more you know.
The more I've learned so much tonight. It's incredible.
So,
Um,
moving on. Have you got a +1 for Gym Club?
yeah, I've totally got a +1 for Gin Club Reese. Absolutely.
Absolute
When we
fucking
get there,
myth.
we're absolutely not both of us. Sorry, both of us, and absolutely not going to get turned away.
Absolute myth. There's no such thing as +1s for Gym Club.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an actual invite to Gin Club. The number of people who go said they've been invited by other people, and you're not getting in. You're just not getting in unless you have a
No.
hat. You're not getting in.
All right. I think yeah, you would have that element of you're not getting in without a hat, but I'm pretty sure you can get in either way. I've been told. There's other methods, but it's never been really that interesting to me.
Yeah, like like anywhere there, if there's a wheel, there's a way. There's a flap, there's a trap, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Gin Club is actually relatively hard to get into
Yeah.
because
Well, I
it's
mean,
not like you can get in and just hang out there unnoticed. You go in, you gotta talk to the fucking bartender. You've got to talk to the other people in there who will not know who you are. So
mm,
yeah, it'll also just be a shit time for you, to be honest, if you're not one of the movers and shakers because you won't understand what the hell is going on.
I mean, a lot of it's probably gossiping from what I've been told. So
Yeah,
don't take it as a pinch of salt. I think it's just high quality ball gowning or high like echelon ball gowning.
yeah.
So
I'm just
I get
salty I
that
haven't been
conclave.
invited.
Ah well, as you said,
Just
there's a
try
will, there's
harder.
a way. Just try and be nicer and try and be happier. and
No.
eventually they'll take pity on you for being so happy, and they'll let you in.
Yeah.
Your
Um.
non-tragic backstory.
Yeah. And make loads of friends, perhaps.
No, friend and friend, friend and
Friend,
friend, friend and
friend,
friend and friend and friend. Yeah,
up and
the
down all
friendship
around.
cult.
Yeah, the friendship cult. Um. So, as far as I'm aware, this is basically over. Um. It's been it people still refer to it, but the actual culty element of it, I think it got inquisited at one point. The Inquisition got involved with the person who used to run it, and of course
Yeah.
it was proven to be, the shit post that it is, and well, nothing really came of it. It's definitely less popular now, but like it's seeped into background Anvil knowledge.
You can still go to the friendship cult thing. I mean, it's still open on certain nights of Anvil, because I definitely attended at least one of them in 2022.
Mm.
As in one of the people just turn up and everyone's like chatting with each other inside the Senate after the Senate session's done, and then someone enters and someone screams "new friend," and then the entire chorus erupts of friend and friend, friend and friend, friend and friend and friend. And yeah, it continues. It's kind of like it's gone from the like really weird stuff, and I know because I participated in some of the really weird stuff,
Yep.
to like the mundane. And I think that's fine for it, to be honest, because it is sort of like an icy shitpost. It's like a bunch of people thinking, what can we do that isn't a cult that could be conceived as a cult just to wind people up? And that is exactly what the friendship cult does.
Mm.
Because we did the whole daggers situation. I remember back in like 2019 when it first came a real thing. We got inducted into the Friends, and we were running around in the Var Woods at like 2 a.m. with daggers, and yeah, that was people were interested in that,
Yeah,
to say the least.
proper culty stuff. Anything going on
Yeah.
at 2 a.m. in the woods is not kosher.
Well, it's technically timeout, but yeah, it's not kosher either way.
Yeah. You see daggers, you've actually got yourself, 30 centimeter steel
You
daggers.
actually, yeah, is that dagger lap safe? Well, find out. Uh, But yeah, the woods are sometimes a not kosher place, which is does lead us on to the story of the theft of the singing stone.
I know almost. I know the rock because I saw it near the baked goods stand on the entry into
Yes.
Navarre, and that's all I know of it because it disappeared. That's
So
it. And
so
it wasn't
to
me. It wasn't me, dear listeners. I did not do it.
well, it's good. It's good it wasn't you. So the singing stone, as it was called, was a artifact, and there's very few of them in terms of lore. Um, I won't bore you with the fluff. It is a magical item that is really unique to Navarre. It does a very unique purpose, and it was there to do that unique purpose. The unique purpose in question was just that it allowed Navarre to cast one ritual. Doesn't matter which coven you were in, it could be cast. So like you could do one massive ritual of that one ritual without any coven weird things
Okay.
mechanics. So there was a legitimate reason for it. Um, Said item was a obelisk, roughly about 3 to 4 feet high. Um, but it had the icy motion that it required 4 people to move it at the same time, just because of just how heavy it was.
It's
So
a
there's
big
an
rock.
it's a big carved rock. However, during one fabled night during songs and story time, it was it was discovered that an illicit band of individuals had actually come up, picked up the rock whilst songs and story time was going on, and just walked off with the artifact. Supposedly, no one really saw what happened, which is just a massive lack of vigilance, which is also pretty hilarious.
Out like a
But the
hundred
stone,
people, right?
yeah, well, like 100 people, but the stone was stolen, and it was subsequently got rid of. We know what the plot is now. We know there has been some resolution to that plot, but like, yeah, it's gone. So, can you imagine? Yeah, you can just
It's
imagine
gone.
that
What do you mean? It's just gone.
it's just gone. That's the easiest way to describe it. But can you imagine the fact that the Singing Stone was a massive scandal, like at least in Navarre, because it's like how could you miss a 4 person carried rock being lifted up and out, like
Easily, as we have demonstrated.
as has been demonstrated, yes. But thus is the story, and that's a legitimate story. It's one of the greatest things about Anvil is stuff like that happens, and you can experience it then, or you could be, secondary eyewitness to it, or you could have been there at the time when the Singing Stone was stolen and didn't realize it, and
There are no
you've got no.
eyewitnesses because anybody would have stopped it.
Well, it's the problem when you get too drunk around a song and story circle.
Yeah, people just actively helping each other steal artifacts.
Yeah.
Man, rip Singing Stone. Um,
No, we'll
the
get another one.
yeah, I guess like when it comes to like crime around Anvil, I'd like to think I'm relatively an expert. Yeah, some things have always been illegal, like what about toilet murders, that kind of stuff. That steal the Singing Stone, Navarre won't mind. And then of course everyone's favorite drug, bite. Oh my God, are we doing bite? Oh wow, they've got some bite. Hey dude, you want to buy some bite? Like bite was, if you didn't know, and if you didn't know, you need to seriously reassess your life. Bite is a narcotic. It originated in the league, and it's people treat it like it's crack or like coke or something. It's really desirable. It's really fun. It's gonna make you feel amazing. It makes you hyper aggressive. Like it is just like the 28 days later rage virus in crystalline salt form. It doesn't give you any buffs. It just makes you fucking mad, and everyone goes nuts for it just because it's illegal. It's like, yeah, I don't, I see the appeal because it's illegal. I don't see the appeal for the mechanics. Um, but anyway,
Just,
it's
yeah.
yeah, rant time. It has been pretty much pulled out of circulation. I think there's literally one player character who gets some in their pack because we can't brew it, and they get like 5 to 10 doses each season. That's it. It's if people say, "Oh, hey, do you want to go do some bite?" or "Oh, let's go score some bite," it's just not going to happen. It's a myth. It's not going to happen.
There's an individual who has happened to have done some bite in their time. Presumably on previous characters, you can't prove nothing. Um, yeah, as you said, it is just not. It's only a roleplay effect. So
Yeah,
your only reason for taking it is just to experience the roleplay effect or act off it, which is kind of fun. I mean,
it is. Yeah,
it's fun. It gets you to step out and do some random crap, and then get potentially caught for doing bite. But yeah,
they take it
it's
really seriously. It's I guess it's almost like a status thing because it's like, hey, I've got something that's
well,
categorically illegal in
if you
my
want to
hands.
know, something that's actually 100% in this is you can look this up on the wiki as well, so it's not like private knowledge. Um, it costs the Empire, and this means it costs the Senate 25 thrones a season to combat bite as an item. So if you imagine that the Senate gets like 500 thrones a season to divvy out, deal with things, pay
Oh,
for
it's
things.
5% of the budget is spent on the war on crimes. Sorry,
No,
war
yeah,
on drugs.
this, yeah, just I was hypothetical. I don't know the actual tenant,
Mm.
the amount that goes into the master element and gets processed through, but you can imagine that X amount of sum of whatever is given to the civil service or what is left over has to come out to combat bite. So, I mean, there's an RP element to it. There's also an RP element of why do we just kill all of the funding that is used to combat bite and just let people have bite? It saves the Empire 25 thrones a season.
We can use that money to fund a recovery hostel for them.
Yeah, which would only cost 10 thrones a season, thus saving money. Downside is addicts.
I think that would be some interesting role play. Having like addicts on the streets of Anvil. Like, I've always thought about putting like having a blanket on the floor. Like some people I live in London. If you didn't know, I know you do, Rhys, but it's for the others. Um, what can sometimes happen is you do obviously there's a lot of homeless people here, and some of them really do need help. But then on whenever there's genuine human plight, there is always those who will profiteer off it. And some gangs get people to kind of disguise themselves, or they might have the classic one is having a blanket over their legs, and just in a way so it makes it look like it's severed or removed, but it's not. And I felt like doing something relatively similar in Anvil would be interesting, like pretending to be a penniless war veteran, looking looking for charity, that kind of thing, and just seeing how people would react to that. Because you don't see any, because we're all relatively rich people in Anvil, right? You don't see any representation of poverty because it's pretty. You have to spend a lot on sweets and beer to get to that state. But like, there's no sort of idea of destitution, or I guess you could have refugees from the fronts, that kind of thing. And I just think it'd be really interesting to see on the street of Anvil, outside Moorish, someone with a little cup begging for rings, and then profiteer off human plight and turn that into a scam. Naturally.
Well, there's always the one thing just to sort of turn back to it a little bit is that playing a beggar or NPC character was kind of like sort of put down, if that makes sense, because you meant to be a big hero, even if you're not really a big hero. It's the idea of you shouldn't really be playing
Yeah.
that sort of thing, which I think is the reason why we don't see as many beggar characters we see on there. Because they kind of push that sort of mentality of you should be playing someone who owns a resource, because if you've got a military unit, you can do this. There's no
Mm.
mechanic in the game to say you've got no
Well,
resource
there
and
is if you
whatnot.
lose territory conquest, like in
Yeah, you
Spiral, for
still
example.
yeah, you still keep it. It's just you get a massive penalty to your resource generation.
Yeah, and you could. I think you lose. I think sometimes you lose all of it. Like in, is the
Hmm.
Atherton 100% loss? No, it's
No,
not.
it's not. It's like 50%.
Yeah, it's still pretty steep,
It's
but
steep, but you still earn something, and it's more than what the average person would still earn,
mm,
which is like kind of the like threshold level. I mean, this is not the talk discussion about economics at Anvil, because I could go on for fucking hours. So, but yeah, +1 to Gin Club doesn't really exist.
yeah, going back to that. You'll never be poor enough to be a beggar or rich enough to get into gin club.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Go on,
that's
white
the
where you
key
want you.
message. Um, so yeah, bite. The next are all grouped together, and I'll start with what they are, and then a little story about it.
Mm.
So knife fighting. Navari, we like knives. There used to be a knife fight club in the Senate building after
Mm.
Senate had finished, but this was replaced with Senate Motions, which is a dance club, which is much more wholesome and I'd say complementary to the finery of Anvil than what was happening before. I think OC as well, it's because people were fighting when drunk. It just caused a lot of problems for PD, so they just shut it down.
Yep.
Short, simple story there. But when it comes to knives and dual wielding knives and anything edgy in that department, you get assassins. And my point here is going to be the Assassins Guild. I have heard so many fucking people talk about the Assassins Guild like it's some secretive institution that's very exclusive and hard to get into. Yet, ignoring the fact that every Ulfric, and Bjorn talks about it like you're talking about your Sunday roast. Like it's it baffles me that the people who profess to be in it are often the ones telling you that they're in it rather than you confronting them about it. And the reason this is relevant to knives is that all of them will have at least two daggers, up to six in my experience, and they will hold them in a reversed grip if threatened. Um, for anybody who has listening, yeah, words are hard. For anybody whom is listening, holding a dagger in a reverse grip and trying to fight with it is semi pointless. It is. I'm talking about you've got the blade, you're holding it in your hand, kind of like an ice pick, but then you angle it so that it's almost parallel to your forearm, and that is like trying to slash someone with a backhanded reverse grip dagger strike. It's just so difficult. It is so difficult. Let alone doing that without getting hit back. It's wild. So regardless, the assassins think it's very cool to fight like this, and inspired by anime, pop culture, that kind of stuff, where it works for them because they're superhumans. But the number of daggers they have on them is part of the story, where essentially me and my friend Tadpole, we went to see the Coctopus in the Brass Coast. If you're not aware, this is a play. I I've heard it mentioned plenty, but I haven't seen it actually being played for years. I don't know if it's still active or not, but as you can guess by the name, it's a rather lewd but hilarious play about an octopus with willies for tentacles and the various escapades he gets up to. Now, as we're watching this this theatrical masterpiece play out in front of our eyes, I spot someone across from us, a shadowy figure, let's say, sat in the front row. Don't get me wrong. They have their black hood, black jacket, black trousers, and black boots. The hood is up, despite us being indoors. The jacket is sleeveless, and they have two knives sheathed at their waist. And I tap my friend Tadpole and I say, Tad, I bet you 4 crowns that he's got at least 6 daggers. And of course, Tadpole is a little bit confused at first. He goes, "Sorry, what? What do you mean? Who? Where?" I point out said Assassin's Guild member. That's what I say. I just say assassin, and then he gets it. And he goes, "Nah, that's not 6. He's got 2. I reckon he's got 1 in the boot." And then this is the point where he gets unsure of himself. He puts his hand on his chin, goes into deep thought. He's like, well, those are the 3 I can see. But what if he's got another 2 in his back, or there's 1 in his other boot, or he's got like a thigh strap one underneath him. And at the end, he takes up the bet, but he's not entirely sure he's going to win it anymore. So anyway, as the interlude rocks around, we've had a few drinks at this point. We call out said assassin and go, "Oi, you!" in the black for the knives, catching the attention of most of the people in this theatre. And we say, "How many knives have you got on you?" Asking for a friend. So he's confused. We reiterate it, and he slowly pulls out to its waist, then the one in his boot. I just look him dead in the eye and just go, "Come on, I know you've got more than that." And at this point, he looks down in shame and pulls out 2 other knives. He's got another one in his other boot, and then he's got one sheathed behind him. You know, there's belts where you can have like a lateral knife.
Yeah.
It's just like stashed basically on his coccyx. That's where he had it. And he pulled it out. Wasn't quite the 6 I needed to win the bet, but it's very close. But it was just when like this player knew, like, damn it, the look is a bit too much, and being called out for being an assassin and being full of shit, full of daggers. And yeah, that's how I lost 4 crown. That was a lot of money for me back in the day. Took me a long time to recover. But yeah, assassin archetypes, assassin look, assassin fighting style, and of course, assassin knives. Um, Myth, legend. I don't really know what the point was for that. I think the point in terms of there's no legends about it because it doesn't work. There's certainly a Anvil story there. I guess the myth that it even exists. I'm sure the Assassin's Guild exists, technically. I'm sure at least 30 of them do. But an actual centralized Assassin's Guild that genuinely takes out hits, I don't think that exists. I just don't. Thoughts?
It's a lot of thoughts to that sort of statement. So, Night Fight Club, I can get into because I experienced it in Worlds Apart while I actually went and did it for a little bit before it got canned. But staying on the Assassin's Guild sort of situation, I mean, it's the crux of any edgy character at the end of the day. If you're really new to LARP and you haven't done a lot of stuff like this, what's more cooler than being an assassin, right?
Mm.
You know, it's the childhood dream for many. Like I grew up playing Assassin's Creed. I'm pretty sure as a 12 or 13-year-old, I probably wanted to be an assassin at some point. You know, dreams a dream. Reverse gripping daggers. Yeah, that's just science. That's pretty much science fiction at this point. I mean, there's probably like one. There's, I think they confirm there's like only 1 or 2 uses that it's kind of good to have your daggers like that, and they're very very limited. Like in a main up fight, you might as well just have the daggers pointing forward now.
Mm.
More than 6, same thing. Like, why would you need 6 daggers though? Like, and that's in the Navari speaking, right? Go for pouches instead.
Yeah,
What else?
carry
Like,
some useful stuff. Yeah.
Carry,
Oh man, I
carry on
just
this useful stuff.
I can assure you, everyone listening at home, an assassin has not hurt me in a previous life. I've never had my heart broken by one or encountered them on the wrong end of their knives.
Hey,
I don't know, it's just I can't hate on people for having like the edgy archetype. You gotta try it. Everyone's got like an edgy thing they want to try out, but it was just so generic. It was just so generic, and like when you're we talked a bit about costume before jumping on tonight, and it's all aspirational. So we're talking about this in regards to the Hedge Knight because you can't poo-poo someone for their kit, but the story was funny because he spent the night in the hedge. Great, but the assassin side is that outfit doesn't match any nations, right? But it does match an assassin. But then if you're an assassin, you're trying to roleplay one. Why are you sat in a theater? It's just why you sat there like armed to the absolute teeth, but with different sizes of knives. It just baffled me. And I was sat there with my bottle of mead, I think, just utterly baffled as to what on earth this player was doing, and it
hey,
stuck to
even
me.
assassins need R&R, right?
Yeah,
So
just yeah, it was just the outfit. It was just the sleeve. It was the hood up indoors and the sleeves. It was just sat there.
I mean, that's not even like kit bashing at that point. That's just referring to like someone's like aesthetic choices.
Yeah,
Like
like
a
it
hood
was
up
good kit.
indoors.
It looked like an edgy assassin. It looked really fucking edgy. Oh man. Oh. Um. Speaking of late nights, the final one that's I guess the headline event, and we should have hinted at the start because no one's going to listen to the hour and 21 minutes we've just recorded. But uh, the top news, the top Fox News at the moment is the possibly the most infamous legend of the Anvil field, and this is the Star Bar orgy tent.
Oh no, he's named it. It's made it real
I've
now.
said it now. It's real. So, um, how best to approach this? So we won't talk about current events, but fundamentally, there has been Empire is a festival. It's full of adults. Adults have sex. Some adults have sex in groups. Some people organise those groups. The Star Bar orgy tent of myth and legend was one of those organised groups. Now, what's happened recently is that on a certain website called VetLife, there was someone trying to organise. Was it Was it the same group or was it a
I'm
separate
I,
group?
I'm gonna assume, to the best of my knowledge, it was not the same group, and I'm gonna assume it was just some really kinky people online who were just very interested in potentially doing stuff for Empire, because at the end of the day, there's usually a good crossover between these sorts of people.
Yeah,
Uh, so we'll for the benefit of the doubt, I won't say that they are related to them. I'm just going to say that there were some
it's a group.
particularly horny individuals who are content or potentially going to be organizing an orgy at Empire sometime in 2023, and it somehow got passed to Matt Pennington,
Yeah.
which resulted in probably the greatest PR post I've ever seen uh, from
From
Profound
Matt P. Yeah.
Decisions, because it was posted on Fat Life of all
Yeah,
places,
that's the thing. So like,
and he even signed it off the same way, and it's just like, oh, this is classic.
yeah, and just the idea of Matt P being on there, like he sees this crop up and he's like, oh no 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 no, this is not happening here. I think his argument was to be
We
fair to Matt, he's usually very good at explaining his point, but I found it a little bit unclear on the post. But it was very, very clear that fundamentally he didn't want that thing being organised and done at his
Well,
event.
it wasn't not that. It was more the same thing of we organize Empire to be a LARP event that you turn up and go to, and this is the point of the event. It's not you don't come here to have an orgy, right?
Yeah,
That's no uncertain terms. That's what he said. And he does use a very good explanation of a point of you wouldn't want to set up an orgy and for it to go on and then us turn up with LARP swords and start hitting everyone, which I absolutely howled at the first time I read because
yeah,
just the
because
mental image. Um, But he also didn't say that he was against those events being ran by people, just not at Empire, as in the field. Like it does state in the post that he's quite happy for events like that to go on in an Anvil Empire setting, as long as they're appropriately advertised and not done at the mainline event.
Yeah,
So,
so having a
if
player
you,
event that's just an orgy is on the
yeah, it
cards.
is 100% legal. He probably won't get sanctioned, but would you really want to go, hi, I just attended a sanctioned orgy? Uh, which is the one comment of the best, one of the best things that come from us is Matt P has sanctioned the shag, which is just an absolute killer of a line. Like, yeah, as said, like Starbot Orgy tent. Don't know if it's related. We've always heard rumors of the swinger tents on Empire. It's a tale as old as time. Like, doesn't matter if it was them, doesn't matter whoever was the one organizing it. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
myth.
it's a festival. It does have a place, whether it's organized like that and whether you turn up literally to do that. It's just it's probably more convenient to do it somewhere more local to you than lugging yourself to a campsite for a weekend, buying a whole LARP costume just to take it off. It's yeah, it's
Yeah, I know. I've
it's a
been
lot of
doing it for
effort.
7 years and I've not managed it once.
Oh man, oh it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I've got
I-
space in my tent. We can make
Oh,
our own
thank.
friendship orgy tent where
Oh
we're just really
yeah.
positive about each other.
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh
if you're
yeah.
gonna be bad at it, you can. If you're gonna be bad at it, you might as well be positive about it.
Precisely, yeah. And
Mm.
I guess the final note on the orgy tent is I've got a friend of a friend, a very good friend of a very, very good friend, let's say,
Okay.
who did confirm that they were invited to said tent and to take part. So it is definitely a legend. It is not a myth. The orgy tent does exist.
Can you ask that friend of a friend for me to get me an invite?
I
Come on,
could,
Rhys.
I could.
Excellent. I will finally become one of the big players and will attend Gin Club after this.
You're going to talk to Gin Club. It's never about the Gin Club invite. It's about the stamp cards you've got from the various orgy tents.
Exactly.
Gin Club is just another layer of orgy.
It's
But
just not about going to Gin Club. It's about sending a message.
and yeah, that's a good segue onto the final point as we reach the hour and a half mark. Um, the point, the message we really wanted to hammer home after this ludicrous podcast um, was the final myth of Anvil, and that is I'm going to be really bad at this. In reality, when you think you're going to be bad at something, you're probably wrong. You're probably going to be pretty good at it, actually. Anvil is all about getting people to get up, do something, step a little bit outside your comfort zone, and do the thing. And if you've got brain weasels jumping around saying, hey, you're not going to do this, you're going to be bad, what about all the other people who can do this so well? They all started off in exactly the same place as you, having no clue and just having a stab at it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not as well. If you take what I was back when I first started LARP, I was 100% less confident in actually going out and doing LARP. I'd say the first year that I spent playing Empire, I was pretty much a background character who wouldn't speak to anyone other than the people I would be attending, and now I can pretty much approach anyone and speak to them.
Mm,
You just got to try it, and you find out that you're actually probably better in it, or you're at least passable. That's the one thing. Like, if you find out you're passable, you're like, oh, I can actually do it, and then you continue to try at it, and you get better at it.
yeah,
So, what's the worst going to happen at a event you pay to go to and do that? No one's going to turn around after you say speak to them and then kick the living shit out of you. They just probably pass you off, like you mentioned earlier. And just go, I'm not really that interested, sorry, and you go about your daily business otherwise.
yeah. I've never seen uh, a kicking go on after any kind of speech. It's
No,
always yeah, it's always very positive. But yeah,
but yeah,
there we go. An hour and a half of the myths, stories, and legends of Anvil. There are more. There are many. If you want to write in and let me know about some, please do. Or if you want to jump on the podcast itself and tell me about them, I'd be very interested to hear the stories because I know there's so much worse out there. The night is dark and it's full of terrors. But until next time, have a very pleasant evening. And from me and Rhys, goodbye.
Goodbye.